Hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker. So our speaker is an alum of Cleveland State University, where she obtained her Bachelor of Science degree in psychology and minor in business administration. She has a master's degree from Harvard and she studied economics there. She's born and raised in Petersburg. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Cheryl Brown.
So much for inviting me out. I did not know what Rahaha was, but thank God for Google. So I have a general idea. I wasn't sure what the format would be, so I'm just going to keep it simple and give my testimony. And I just have a few notes of points to touch on. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, I moved here about 2.5, 3 years ago from Boston. I was, as I said, I was born here, but I left when I was about 19. I started out my college education at Virginia State University, and I met my husband in this very building, Foster Hall, while getting lunch. And I just thought he was the prettiest thing I've ever seen. I think I was 19 and a freshman, 18 or 19, and I was a freshman. He was a junior, and I thought he was just so wise, so much older. And I said, to me, he was larger than life. He was larger than life. At 145 pounds, I thought he was just larger than life because I was like 105 pounds. But long story short, we got married, had 3 children, and a few biscuits later, I found out that I could be larger than life. So we were married 20 years, but it began here in Foster Hall. Unfortunately, my husband was diagnosed with cancer, and he fought it for about 4 or 5 years, but he did not win. So he passed away of cancer in his early 50s. So after, I had to deal with the loss of my 3 sons. I dealt with the loss of losing someone after 20 years. I moved to Boston. That's how I ended up in Boston and Cambridge, actually. Just as something different. We were, after I left Virginia, we lived for all of those years in Washington, D.C. So from Washington, D.C., I went to Boston just to, I don't want to say get my mind off of it, but to deal with the loss of my husband. And I took courses at Harvard, and I began working at Mass General Hospital after my kids were grown. My kids are adults. So I was an empty nester, so I just started taking classes at Harvard just to go on with my life. Fast forward, I retired from Mass General Hospital and was living on Martha's Vineyard, living my life like it's golden, so I thought. And woke up one morning and there was a baseball size lump protruding out of my chest, which was weird because all of my life I've gotten mammograms every year, well-woman visits. So to me, I was in perfect health. I did the checks, I did the mammograms every year, and here it was this baseball protruding out of my chest. So, long story short, people ask me, how did I end up in Petersburg? Remember, I said I was born here, but I hadn't been here since I was a teenager. When I left at 19 and I got married, and I'd been away the whole time. But they asked me to find next of kin to get my affairs in order because that lump was stage 3, going into stage 4, very aggressive. So they said they would try to save my life, but they said, find next of kin. So that's how I ended up in Petersburg, by trying to be close to somebody that I was related to, but many of the people had passed away or moved away. But what I found out is that, you know, sometimes we cry about who's not supporting us, which in my younger days I thought maybe family should be more supportive because I was supportive, or friends should be more supportive because I did X, Y, and Z. But what I found out, those people were not the people that were in a position to take care of me. It was all strangers. So that was a life lesson that I had to learn, you know, in my 60s. I'd never been sick up to age 65. So here I am now having to rely on people, whereas before I was the person, the go-to person, the money bag, you know, and I loved it that I was a money bag, because when I grew up, Petersburg, when I grew up, was very affluent. There was nobody really poor in Petersburg when I grew up. We were all just regular. But when I came back and saw the devastation of the industry leaving here, it was my pleasure to help people. I just got joy out of it. And when I was no longer able to take care of people or give or donate, it kind of made me very depressed, because I felt like, now what is my purpose? I thought my purpose was living to give and to take care of others. But I had to learn a whole new way of living, because now I was flying back and forth to Boston every week. My money was depleted. Forget about savings. Good thing I bought a house when I moved here, because all of my money was gone with flying back and forth to Boston for chemo. The only thing I was concerned about with chemo and flying back and forth was, I was just looking for somebody to, if you want me to be honest, just to shoot me. I did not want to live chemotherapy. I did not know what cancer people went through. Like I said, I'd never been sick. And I thought, oh, cancer, I see them walking, oh, that's cute with the t-shirt, and they got the matching sneakers, oh, that's all cute, cute, cute. But when it hit me, I learned a whole new lesson about what people go through. The chemotherapy was rough. I was bedridden. I was in a wheelchair. I had to pay people to push me around the airport. Would drive myself to the airport, through Richmond Airport, get on the plane, somebody push me in a wheelchair, go to Mass General, sit there all day with the chemo, get back on the plane, come back the same day. And I did that for almost a year. Then after that, I survived the chemo. I did not think I could, but because people around the country, they got together, they said, you will live, you will not die. But the doctors were crying, they were patting my hand and said, oh, we're gonna do what we can, to keep you from stage 4. But people around the country, they just kept telling me, you will live, you will not die. So I made it through chemo by the grace of God. And then I was able to get treatment in Petersburg Cancer Institute. Thank God for that, because I was from Boston, the treatment to be treated in Petersburg at PCU would have cost me $29,000 per week. And as I said, my money was being eaten up, so it was even less expensive for me to get on a plane and fly to Boston every week as opposed to paying at $29,000 per week. I made it through that. I was able to get my radiation at the Cancer Institute in Petersburg, and that was a blessing because I no longer had to take that flight every week to Boston. And I discovered that the care in Petersburg was just as high caliber, high quality as I was getting in Boston. So it wasn't that the care was not adequate in Petersburg, because Mass General Hospital was number 3 in the country. I discovered that the care was just as adequate in Petersburg. I got excellent care at the Cancer Institute, and I was able to get through the radiation. But as you know, noticed my skin melted off. That was for the medical students here. I would have appreciated more preparation about the seriousness of radiation. You get a general overview that, be careful about touching your skin, but I did not know that the burns could be third-degree burns down to the flesh. And if I could say that I would want to change anything, and it's not just about the care of Petersburg, it's just general about cancer care, that preparation for the radiation treatment would have been a little more thorough or different. And finally, I made it through the radiation, and then I had to, because they diagnosed that when you have breast cancer, that it generally comes back in 2 years. So I had to do the immunotherapy infusions for that, to try to prevent it coming back in 2 years. And the prophecy came true. All of those people around the country that was praying for me, I rang the bell last month and I'm cancer free. Thank you all for allowing me to tell my testimony. God is good. Are there any questions? Oh, I get to ring the bell. Thank you so much again.
So if there are no questions, if anybody else would like to ring the bell because they know someone who did go through breast cancer, or if you guys still want to ring the bell as well.